All right, I think that we are live. Everybody, welcome to Graders Notes, the review show where the audience is part of the review panel. Of course, we have our main graders here that are going to join me tonight. Introducing all the way from the wacky state of Florida. Let's introduce our senior panel member. Oops. Mr. Metarog. Let's just introduce everyone. Everybody knows when it's Miracle's turn to host the show, the technical difficulties are just going. It's something you have to accept.
It was intentional, I'm sure.
No problem.
Anyways, let's go around the clock. Right below me, like I said, from the wacky state of Florida, Mr. Metarog. Over from Beantown, or close to Beantown in New England,
right,
is Metarog. And
Kenny.
Comic at 84, sorry,
yeah.
Kenny. And right down and to the left is, wait a minute, where are you from again? West Virginia?
That's me. Country roads. I hear edibles are legal in Canada, so it's all making sense now.
It's all legal here, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, man.
You just go to the store and buy the government stuff, right?
It's your version of government cheese, huh?
That's right. So yeah, this is our Graders Notes crew, but of course, we also always at the end ask you, the audience, the chat members, to give us a grade. Bring in, what you felt our issue is, or the issue was to you. We got 5 categories we're going to go over. We're going to talk about the cover. We're going to talk about the interior. We're going to talk about the story, the concept, and what our overall impression of the book is. And of course, like I keep saying, you, the commentators, the audience out there, will have your own feedback, your chance on each of those categories to pop into your grade. So tonight's book, of course, is Spider-Man versus Wolverine. Roger, how did you feel about today's pick?
Actually, I thought it was a really interesting pick because I have that comic. I read it when I bought it, and I hadn't read it since, but I still remembered the main plot point. So that tells you something. That tells you there's something there that's different.
Nice. And let's cruise around. Kenny, how did you feel, sir? What was your take on this pick?
Yeah, I was definitely interested to check it out. You know, I'm always the fan of a good crossover hero versus hero battle, even though most of them are misunderstandings. You know, of a hero versus story is always a misunderstanding. In this one, in honor of that, maintains that. But it was pretty cool. 2 characters that I haven't read too much with those 2 particular guys crossover, so I was into it.
Nice. And last but not least, David, sir, I know this one's fresh in your mind. How did you feel about today's pick?
Quite fresh. I'm still reading it, actually. Crossovers in this era were kind of fun. It's a bigger book, and it's 2 of the marquee characters of Marvel. It's a well-known fact that these are not my favorite characters in Marvel by even in a close measure, but I was kind of interested in the book because it looked like an interesting one, and due to the size of it, I figured they'd try to at least tell a pretty cohesive story. So I was actually had some mild anticipation for this one.
Cool. Yeah, I was pretty excited. I thought it was a good pick. Right. Definitely one of those books I remember buying off the shelf as like this big thing because it was quite expensive at the time for a comic book, and big and thick, so it took a long time to read. 62 pages in this bad boy, so it was quite a bit of reading going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything we forgot? No? Well, let's get into the review then, all right? Let's start right at the front. We always like to start with the cover because that way that's where everybody starts with the comic. And I'm going to go, let's start with, we'll go in the same pattern we went with here first. And we'll start with Roger. Roger, how did you feel about the cover today, buddy?
Okay, can you put it up a digital copy there for me? Yeah. I'm going to try to be brief today. I know that's very antithetical to what my being is, but I'm going to try to be very brief today because we started late, and plus, I'm going to try a new technique here. I'm going to try to be a succinct Meteron. All right. Cover. I think cover is it's pretty good. I like and I dislike it in equal measure, right? Because you have the big Spider-Man versus Wolverine, which takes up over a third, the trade dress up there, which I think could have been done a little bit differently to give us a little more bigger figures. I think the Wolverine, and it looks a little bit on the smallish side there. It's kind of looks like a concave ground there, which is, I don't know if it's almost like it's like through a lens of sorts, but I do like the color scheme in the back. You see like the little purplish and black clouds kind of intimates that there's something dour about this, besides the fact that they're fighting in a graveyard. But the figures are okay. It's an action promoting cover. In other words, you can see that there's actually fighting going on. Wolverine's claws looks to be going behind one foot and in front of the other, even though they seem to be on the same plane, which is a little odd, I guess. I guess you could sort of move your shoulder that way, but it's just an odd way of, if you actually had to do it, it just was an odd. And then he comes down smashing the tombstone. So it gets the job done. There is a scene in here just like this, so I give them credit for that. The trade dress, although cool, it's just way too big. And the characters, I would like to see them a little bit bigger and maybe more like profile against each other rather than one on top of the other. Kind of like lose a little bit of the oomph there. So better than average though, because it does convey the action and it does, again have a place in the comic. So I gave it a 3. I thought it was better than serviceable, but could have been much better.
All right, 3. That's not a bad grade. I mean, like you said, better than serviceable, but some of your stuff I really agree with. So let's keep going. We'll go over to Kenny. Kenny, how did you feel about the cover here?
Yeah, I mean, I like how you have the 2 logo trade dresses, that are true to their original titles on the header there. I always think that's pretty cool. And I appreciate that it's an action scene, giving you some action up front. I appreciate that it's in a graveyard, because I feel like that's one of the more striking things about this cover is, to see 2 heroes kind of scrapping in a graveyard. That's a very ominous setting for a fight, kind of dark, and it kind of does reflect the vibe. This is a little bit of a darker toned book than you usually see for Spider-Man anyway. But I think the color, I love the color of the sky in the back, the black and the purples. The colors used on the tombstones kind of throw me off. They look like golden. And even the way that, especially that one on the right, the way that he drew the shines and some of the color accents, it really looks like they're golden tombstones. Even if it is a kind of stone, I don't know about any kind of sandstone or something, not a stonemason. I don't know the different kinds of block or whatever, but I haven't seen many gravestones with that color. So it's just weird. It looked like golden tombstones to me. I'm not sure why they didn't go with a more granite type coloring on that. So that's kind of jarring, And I do think while it is like an action pose, it's a very flat angle. I think if you tilt, I think a more seasoned artist and maybe a little more ambitious, this might be the artwork of someone who knows his role and knows not to get out of his depth, because this cover image with the camera rotated a few degrees, like a 3/4 degree view on this, with Wolverine's slash coming towards the reader a little bit, would have made this such a home run cover. It made it so much more dynamic. You could have played with Spider-Man, jump a little bit better with that camera view. But with this flat on, take on it, I think makes it a little boring. What could have been a more action-packed pose. So, with all that being said, there is some highlights on the setting, some of the coloring, like with the sky, but a bit of a missed opportunity. I really think this is serviceable. I think 2.5 is where I'm at with it.
Yeah, 2.5 seems like a pretty reasonable spec on this one. David, you ready to go for the cover?
Yep.
All right, brother. Let's put you up. What did you feel about this cover?
My biggest issue with this cover really is the trades. They should have dropped the trades to maybe half that size, because the skyline looks kind of cool and it gives it more of an ominous feel to cloudy sky, those purple tones of twilight. That's nice. I like just about actually everything on this cover except for maybe two things other than the trade dress, and that is, and Roger actually mentioned it, is they're either fighting on a mound, or that's the curvature of the earth, and it just makes no sense logistically speaking, like why it looks like that. But we're gonna say maybe they're fighting over a huge burial mound or something. I don't know, whatever the case may be. I didn't care for that. And the perspective is a little off of Spidey, man. He is like right above Wolverine in kind of a wacky pose, but he's always full of wacky poses. But it's like you think he'd be a little bit farther back, because like Wolverine is like doing it's just a little off. I think Spider-Man should be pushed back just a tiny bit. But I don't know. I think it's a cool conceptual cover. It's got Wolverine in a very classic Wolverine action pose. It's a full body thrust, which is kind of cool. It means he's going in for the kill, right? And now, I didn't like how another thing I didn't like, actually, was the gravestone. Why is it exploding? That should just be slicing in half, right? It shouldn't be breaking up like that. So that was kind of a bummer. I think it was a missed opportunity. It would have been much cooler to make it slice into pieces. But, I mean, other than that, I kind of dig the cover. I like the idea of them fighting in a graveyard. I like the backdrop of that, like I said, the twilight-hued clouds. And the characters look drawn pretty confidently. It's a good Spider-Man pose. It's a good Wolverine pose. I give it 3.5. I kind of actually dig it.
Nice, 3.5. So everybody seems to be kind of landing in that same sort of area. Yeah, so I'm going to take a crack at the cover here. Spider-Man versus Wolverine. Look at that bad boy trade dress on there. Right? See that? It does fill up quite a bit, but I mean, these are your two bread and butter characters here at Marvel in 1986. I mean, these were the big guns. Putting them together in a book, you definitely want to advertise the heck out of that. Right, so that's why that trade dress is definitely going to be that big. So the big verses in there, right? Like not even just a BS. It's got to have verses, just so there's no confusion, right? I do like the coloring. Like you can feel the cover is a little different than a normal comic cover, right? Like this was a premium comic, right? With these, I'm not going to go into the interior yet. At the time, with this kind of price point on that guy, if you guys can see, it was $250 US, $325 Canadian. Man, that was a expensive comic to be buying off the spinner rack when you were 12 years old. That's for sure. I think you guys nailed it. Like, yeah, the gold colored granites. Like, yeah, if they wanted to have like that sun reflection, definitely needs to be more gray on the shadowy sides to give that sort of effect. If you're going to do gold, you don't actually take a metallic gold and color it. That doesn't work. Gold metallics are very, very flat. You paint it yellow and then use brown to highlight out that yellow and make it look like gold, which is what happened here, which is why these look like gold. That's why Kenny kept saying that, right? A little bit of a miss with using like a brown off tone and a sort of a brown orangish off tone, which will really make yellow look more like gold. Right? So yeah, that's what's happening there. But he wants to bring those yellow stones forward because of that purple background, that purple and blue. That's exactly what he was thinking, whoever colored it. Anyway, I do like that the cover's not a rug pull. It's advertising a fight that actually happens in the book, right? So often we've seen that. They put something crazy on the cover and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to see this. And it has not appear in the book. It has nothing to do with what's going on in the book whatsoever. That really irks readers to no end. But this one does deliver. So that's good. And yeah, I landed on a 3.5 for this cover. I kind of liked it. Maybe the guys could have been rendered a little better, but I did kind of like the cover, and I do like that it's like a nice premium cover. So 3.5 for Mr. Miracle.
Nice.
There we go. This time we'll start with Metarov last time.
How about the chat? How about the chat grade there?
Right. I guess we'll end with the chat. You guys, I didn't forget about you guys. I just forgot about you guys.
The fifth grader.
The fifth grader.
Most grader you forgot about, Dave.
It's been a while. I only get to do this every couple of months. Right? So.
It's hard emceeing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I do all my videos and edit them later. Trust me, there's a lot of editing and retakes.
Yeah, you're on the spot.
That's right, live. Fifth grader, tell us what you feel about this cover. You've had this cover up on the screen now for a little while. Everybody's had a good look at it. So if you have an opinion, have a grade, put it into the chat now. We're going to add them up and take an average of everybody's chat grade. We'll average it out with all of our grades and see where we land on this one. Right. So go ahead and give us your grades now. Oh, we got some 3s, 3.5s, 3. Yeah, see that. I find we got a smart audience here, man. They usually kind of land in the same areas that we do, right? We're all very veteran comic readers. We know what's what.
Right. Yeah. One thing nobody mentioned, but I kind of do want to mention is that I like the fact that they use the webbing under the arms like the old Romita days.
Yeah.
I was actually going to say, and I was just looking at it when you popped up, that they used the old costume because if you know, in 1986, the symbiote was gone, but he still had a black costume that was made out of fabric, right?
Right.
It was one of those things that I'm sure every artist and their dog wanted to fight against that black costume. It's hard to draw a black costume. Spider-Man's costume with the webbing is designed really well because you can contour those lines to make it contour his body parts and shape out stuff, right? So that makes Spider-Man a lot easier to draw. If he's all black and you're trying to make him into a shape, oh, that's tough.
Are you kidding? Artists loved the black uniform. They just gave it off to their anchor. They just did a little freaking outline.
Yeah, go for it. Ink this. Black ink.
Yeah, a lot of ink went into those that era in Spider-Man comics especially when he's fighting Venom. I mean,
oh man.
Yeah.
Is there 3 different first appearances of the cloth black Spider-Man uniform too?
Yeah. I was wondering that when they were introducing the characters and stuff, how he doesn't mention symbiote. I was like, why is he glossing over that he has a symbiote alien bonded to his body?
No, at this point, he's just wearing the cloth one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not Venom. That's not Venom.
This was really close to them switching him back.
Yeah.
I think he gets switched back about
breaking up is hard to do.
280.
Was it the cloth?
Spider-Man?
Was it the cloth outfit on the Web of Spider-Man real famous cover?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Web of Spider-Man 1.
Because that was after Marvel Team Up ended.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Charles Vest's cover. Yeah.
I ran the grades through the abacus, by the way.
Oh, you did it already? Oh, okay.
I did, and it came to, as you might suspect, a 3.
3. Good grade.
3.
Smart
grade.
chat. What can I say? Very smart chat we have here.
All right, so that's great. Thanks everybody who tossed in a grade. We're gonna move ahead. Like I said, we're a little behind today, so we're gonna go a little quick.
It is my fault, chat, by the way. We are so behind.
Yeah, somebody was tardy.
Completely my fault.
It's okay. Telling me I gotta stop smoking weed. I'm not the one.
I'm straight edge. I don't know what my excuse is. Just an idiot.
Yeah, I'm straight edge. I'm just dumb too. Yes, let's go with Kenny. Kenny, let's move on to the interior artwork. How did you feel about the interior artwork, sir?
All right, let's cruise through this thing. So,
yeah.
I always appreciate an artist that starts a book off with a dynamic full page spread for the first page. So I feel like we definitely start the party off right off the bat. You start to, right on page 2 is you start to see one of the tropes that this guy uses a lot, which is the close-up on the eyes panel. You see that many times throughout this book. It's one of his favorite things to do. As far as a critique, this will show a critique, which is inconsistency in faces is something that's pretty common throughout the book. Take note of this Wolverine face, for example, on the lower left of this page. And as I go through some other face panels, you'll see that that doesn't really look like the same guy. But the fundamentals are here with this guy, like that. The panel right to the right of it is a pretty primo Wolverine stalking towards you pose. They do funky things with color in here. Like, and this is another kind of trope that this guy does a couple times. When Wolverine's in slash mode, he does this thing that he's doing here with this pink purple panel, and he kind of just flashes to a funky color and just shows like slash effects, which is actually kind of cool. There's some more intense eye panels. I think he has a pretty well done Spidey. He puts him in pretty cool swing poses. Respect. Oh, here's a beef. So a lot of thought. Well, these are the thought bubbles, but they do it as blocks. A lot of thought bubbles on this page. Okay, and there's two main characters in this book: Spidey, Wolverine, and a lot of comics. A thing that they do to help the reader keep track of what's going on is they'll give like each character's thought bubbles like a unique color code, or they'll put a little logo thing next to it so you know which character you're thinking of. Every like thought process boxes throughout this book between Spidey and Wolverine, and they switch up. You're following both their thought processes, is the same yellow block. And I think that was a design flaw in this book. Bright colors, like I think the colors are, sometimes they're a little extra bold, where it almost looks like a 70s sitcom, like right here. But for overall, though, he does cool things with color throughout this book. I think you get fairly classic renditions of Spidey. I feel like he's kind of channeling a Ramita era Spidey. When you're looking at like Peter Parker out of the suit. So that's all good. Okay, let me breeze through a little faster. Again, cool stuff with color and shading, like that Wolverine with the shade there, the blues and the blacks is well done. But you see how now we're following Wolverine's thought process, and it's the same yellow blocks. And it's all good and well right now, but once they are on the panel together, Spidey and Wolverine, it kind of becomes a little bit of a cluster. Cool action pose here. Good panel use. Definitely did not go gory enough with the throat slit. That's a very tame, I just walked into my friend's throat slit scene. Like, come on, what did he get, a paper cut on his neck, brother? Like, give me some, let me see the horror of the situation.
Yeah, there's no comics code here, so there's no excuse.
Dang. Oh, there was no comics code? Oh, you know. Oh, here's that trope again. The bright color with the slashy for action. It's a trope, I know. That's you know. There's your other
yeah, there is a comics code. Sorry, forgive me. There is one.
Oh, there is? Okay. Here's the close-up on the eyes trope yet again. I'm telling you, it's all throughout this book. What else is in my notes? Classic Spidey suit. I think I'll leave the rest of the stuff on the bone for you guys. The last thing I'll point out is I always love a good like silhouette fight scene. It's stuff that you'll see in different, you know, it's a way that's used over comics. And I love it. What's happening right here, this big beef, and you're seeing them through the windows. I love that. Just an example of kind of like using just simple colors in a cool way. I dig it. So, yeah, overall, inconsistent faces, some tropes that I feel like he went back to too many times would be the negatives. But on the positives, I feel like the fundamentals are there. Classic renditions of the characters, pretty good poses and action scenes throughout. And overall, I think it was above average. I'm gonna give it a 3. Landed on a 3.
Nice. Seems like the number of the day so far. Coming and going. David, how do you feel about giving the interior a grade? Or is it me?
I feel fine. Oh, and by the way, even though Roger did threaten to make me read the Liefeld Cap run, I have to admit, one of my all-time favorite Cap covers was actually in that genre, believe it or not. I've always loved the third one. I just love the color of the rain and all that, and I love Crossbones as a character. He gets the proportions all wrong still, but such a cool cover, man. I gotta like that one. But that's the only one I like. But you have to review one, make it that one. All right, so interior art. You want to share my screen? If it'll let you. There we go. All right, so a lot of what Kenny said is really cool. I won't try not to retrod too much. At one point, I really like this Spider-Man scene right here. I love it. It makes zero sense thematically, but I dig it. It's like he's actually stuck to a flagpole. I think that's kind of cool. But okay, let's start out with a couple negatives first, because that's how I usually roll. Spider-Man is way too big. He is so bulky, especially when he gets around Wolverine. He draws him even worse out of uniform. There's a pose in there where Peter Parker looks like Eddie Brock with his sleeves rolled up. He's just too massive, and that's not Spider-Man. I always think of the Bagley. I always liked the way Bagley did him. I never liked the way Larson did him, like an anorexic freaking scarecrow or whatever. But I did like the Bagley proportions for the most part, and some of the older, the Ditkos and all that had it better. But he's just too big in this, and Spider-Man's always been kind of a lanky, smaller hero, you will. So they make him tower over Logan. I guess they're trying to emphasize how short and small Logan is, but he's not like Puck. He's not that small, He's probably like 5'6" or something like that, and a world full of giants. So that's a bit of a thing, and there is a lot of inconsistency in this book. A lot. I can somewhat forgive that though, because there's so much going on in this book. This book is huge. I don't know how long they gave him on this thing, but tons of panels to work with, tons of different concepts. And that's going to lead me more into the positives, because I think there's a lot of really cool conceptual shots in this book. I like Jay Jonason's little silhouette here, because he's kind of a good guy, and he's also a really nasty guy, right? So it's a good way. It's like an old movie trope there, put the face half in shadow. This little room down here, it's nothing but lit by the little bit of open door. Things like that are cool, Let's skip to some of the later stuff. It does get a little bit busy. Oops. There's a lot of pages in here. Forgive me. Lots of stuff like this. This is a cool Spider-Man shot, like him sticking and reversing everything. I don't know. He always does weird things like that. There's cool things with claws in the foreground. So really just lots of cool little things in here. And the silhouette shot was also a personal favorite of mine, because it goes from two different angles. And you actually see Spider-Man and Wolverine both in those shots, which is kind of cool in silhouette. So that's nice too. When you get down to the big throwdown and scrap, because of the time of day or whatever, it can get a little bit muddled as far as color and stuff. But there's some really cool shots. I love this scene right here of him just charging in. He's pulling a Goldberg on Spider-Man here and giving him the spear. So just some cool stuff. I mean, this guy's not, Buscema or whatever, but it's all pretty competent. In fact, I like it. It's not a lot of stiff poses and cool ideas. I know. I gave it a 3.5. That was a little better than average, especially with the source material he's got to work with. He's got to work with these two characters, so he makes them look pretty good. But yeah, I think he should have definitely toned down Spider-Man just a little bit in his size. Oh yeah, I was going to see if I could show you what I meant about his proportions compared to Logan. Where are we at? 58. Let's just go to previous here. Sorry, this is always such a bad way of doing it. They're not going to show me easy ones, are they? One or two more screens, and then we're done. No, anyway, I'm not going to worry about it. But anyway, Spider-Man towers over freaking Logan. And yeah, I didn't like that. But most everything else I liked. And it's just a good, solid comic. So 3.5.
3.5. Another 3 coming in there. Seems like that seems to be where most people are landing. The interior art for me. So one of the things that bugged me about this book, and it kept striking me through the whole thing, I know they took some liberties to the colors. This is like fancy paper, right? This was a special issue in 1986. They didn't do stuff like this very often, right? So they could probably push the colors a little bit better than they could with just regular newsprint. So probably they wanted to get a little pushy with the colors, and they do some nice jobs with lots of it's colored well. But like little things, green jacket, like have to be a lime green jacket to show off, that kind of stuff. Anyway, the thing that really pushed it for me was the lack of inking. Like we have talked again and again about issues that are over inked. This one is so under inked. It's like the faces are completely washed out. There's hardly like it just hardly looks like they have features because there's no black put on any of it. There's no shading put on any of it. People come from either being like in the bush in the shadow to being out in full light. Like even like these guys are jumping around at night. There's no shadows on some of this on Spider-Man and Wolvie jumping around here. Faces are washed out. When they first meet Charlie, they can hardly tell that like she has a face. It's like 2 little dots for eyes, 2 little dots for nose holes and a mouth. There's absolutely no inking at all, and like inking really sets your piece down, right? Like it like grounds it into your work, right? That's why Jack Kirby was such adamant about being such a good inker about his stuff, right? Because it really anchored his illustrations down. Here we got like Spider-Man, he's swinging through the night, but it's actually like he's in daytime, right? Like he's not in shadows in any way. Everybody else that he encounters may have a little background shadow, but they're all lit up in the middle of the night, right? I don't know. There are some cool poses. There's a little bit of anatomy problems that this guy has. I think a lot of times I was kind of like, this guy like really wants to be Dave Cochran with some of these kind of a little more wonkier poses that he puts the guys in. And Dave was really good at that, right? He had those kind of weird poses, but he did them well and they looked right. And I don't think that this guy's got the same knack for it as Dave Cochran did. Because, I mean, even you look at that Spider-Man panel where he's punching out Wolverine against there, it's kind of wonky, right? Like that. That reminded me a lot of Dave Cochran kind of thing he would do, but not as well done, right? Like not as well as Dave Cochran would do. Anyways, there was lots of stuff in here that I did like. A lot of work went into this book, all 60 some pages of it. Here's an example of that washed out face I was talking about, right? There's no features on her face at all. Some of the action shots were kind of cool. Wolverine looks a little weird, but yeah, even some of his illustrations are quite tropey as well. Like Kenny was saying. I landed on a 3 as well. I thought it did a pretty good job, and I was pretty impressed with the work. I wish it had a better anchor on the series to kind of just ground his work a little better. And I wish he had just taken a little more time with some of the anatomy stuff. But other than that, I thought it deserved more. All right, so
not bad.
Yeah, let's move ahead to our 5th grader. The chat. Chat, how did you guys feel? Oh, Metarog, did we skip you? Damn it.
Yeah.
I knew this wasn't taking enough time.
What grade did you land on again, Miracle? 3?
3.5.
Yeah.
3.
3.5. 3.5.
Yeah.
I promise I'll be brief.
Yeah. Roger. Sorry, bud. Sorry.
No,
I told you, you
no
just
problem,
got to get used to the technical problems.
No problem. No problem.
Your turn, brother. How did you feel about the interior art?
Can you put up the little visual thing there?
Do you want me to do it, or do you want to do it? Kind of doesn't matter. Here, I got it.
I just have a few things I'm going to talk about because you guys really, you guys suck the marrow out of the bone here. So, I have okay, I'm going to do the genome here, the negative parts, right? When he does faces, I don't think he has a good grasp of aging in the face, right? Now, if we look at Ned Leeds, he's about Spider-Man's age, okay? And that's when he's with Jonah Jameson, when he's telling that he discovered the KGB people that are being killed. Keep going.
Probably about 2 pages from here, I think.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, keep going a little bit more.
More page, maybe.
Yeah. So
he's there.
You know,
There's Ned.
Yeah, he is about Spider-Man's age. There, he looks like, you know, like 50. You know, I mean, and consistently, I see that with Ned Leeds. I don't think he quite gets grasped that this is contemporary of Peter Parker. Should be in his 20s, maybe 30. Okay. Keep scrolling to the next one there, Genome, for me. And then, yeah, keep going. Sorry, keep going. Yeah, and Miracle is right. When you look at the faces, they're very just flat. I mean, there's not a lot of depth to them, unless it's a close-up, and then you got like too much depth. I mean, you're literally like, you can see the wrinkles. So it's like there's no middle ground there. There's look at the little beady eyes that he has there for Peter Parker. I mean, yeah, he's like shocked, but it shouldn't be that beady. You know, it should be more like a shocked look, but not so much of a little bitty iris there. And there's a lot of that shadowing, that kind of monotone. He uses that a lot. I mean, sometimes very effectively, because the book sort of lends itself to a more darker tone. I think there's an allegory there somewhere, but I think every once in a while it's a little overdone, and it's hard to understand, or it's hard to see exactly what's going on in certain panels. And Genome is right. Spider-Man is way too blocky. You know, he's almost like a rectangle at points. You know, he should be much more svelte, much more smooth, and makes him very, very, I don't want to say Kirby-esque, but, you know, just very, very blocky-like. And that's really far off. The webbing under the arms, we talked about it. It comes and goes. Sometimes it's there, you know, farther up when he has his the spinner costume, and then sometimes it's gone, you know. So, but Ditko did the same thing, and Romita here and there. But here, like there on the right, you see it's gone, right? But look on the next panel, look on the next page, and you'll see it's back. You know, see there, it's back. So, you know, it's like comes and goes. And also Spider-Man's head. There's one little panel where it's like, it looks like almost like an alien. You know, like you know, with the big eyes and the very small chin, very, very tucked chin. So that's a little bit weird. Okay, I'm not going to keep going there. However, I will say this, that considering the amount of work that had to go into this comic, right, it's not that bad. It's really the story flows well. He does a lot of, like, you know, a lot of the horizontal panels when he wants you to focus on a series of events coming at you, and then he does the verticals when there's you know, action poses or swinging, things like that, right? So he knows how to lay out things fairly well. Yeah, that you know, I've cut myself shaving more blood than Ned Leeds has on there, but you know, it is the comics code, you know, and so sorry about that. Also, a lot of the clothes is all wrinkly. Does anybody do laundry in this comic? I mean, does anybody iron? I mean, everything is wrinkly except for the black costume. Okay, that being said, I really did enjoy the art. The colors are striking. The inking is under ink, but I'd rather have under than over, to tell you the truth, because if you overdo it, sometimes it's so distracting. This is not quite as distracting. It's just not as good as it could have been, right? But as far as the storytelling elements of the layouts, those were pretty well done. I don't have a problem with it. It's not distracting anyway. It's not really weird in any way. It certainly conveys the story well enough. But it could have been much better with, again, a much more focus on the faces, and much better structure as far as the interior panel. Sometimes the characters are just a little bit too wonky in there, but not distractingly so, but not so the point where you're like, ooh, that's a great John Byrne panel. You know, no, you don't really see that here. It's like, yeah, it's okay. Still, I give him credit because of how huge this comic is. His hand must have fallen off after drawing this thing, because there's a This book is hefty in art and in story. So, I give him credit for that. 3. I think it's much. I think it's. I don't think it's 2.5. I think it's a little better than that, but certainly could have been much better.
Wow, 3 is a good score.
3 is a good score.
I came up with the highest score.
Usually do on the.
I'm too giving, I guess, on characters I don't like.
Sometimes. We're gonna go to our last grader, of course, the audience. You didn't forget this time. Didn't forget you guys. Our audience, of course. For the interior art, I know we've been scrolling a bit past here for everybody to take a look at. If you have an opinion, please put your grade in. If you just want to be heard, please put your grade in. Right? So just put your grade in. We'll give you guys a few minutes to put some grades in there. Ooh, we get some. Rog talked me down.
Hey, I put a 3. Wayne, what's up with the 1.5, man? Mark,
damning it with faint praise.
Yeah, this is Mark Bright, right? That's who the.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, I was not familiar with this guy, Mark Bright.
I wasn't familiar with the writer or the artist here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he did Iron Man some, and I think Power Man some, if I recall.
In fact, other than Jim Shooter, I don't know the guys that do know Bill Oakley, but
he did a pretty good Iron Man run that I recall. I thought it was pretty good, but again, he does the metallic stuff pretty well. But here,
are we gonna give away the
as an editor?
That's true. Are we gonna give away the twist in this or no?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
The very first page is a gotcha. So
yeah. And again, there's a lot of misdirection here in both art and in story. I didn't mention it because I kind of want to do that with the concept, but there's a lot of misdirection.
There is. And there's a big.
Oh, I just noticed there's the body down there. I didn't notice that the first pass through, blending in with the grass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the body count in this issue is immense.
Yeah.
This is like Outlaw Josie Wales levels here.
Right. The Punisher going to Colombia, that story has nothing on this one.
The movie Commando has nothing on this one.
Which, like you said, it is God's comic code authority. Which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
The wolf does kill a lot of people in this book.
You need me to read these out, Kenny?
I mean, it's a pretty. It has a pretty gruesome death. So I guess we'll get into it.
Oof. Wolverine. Years have not been kind there. Man.
Looks like a hunchback there. Look at that.
That facial panel is rough.
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough.
You're right, though, Kenny. This is a cool, like, I'm approaching you and I'm pissed off kind of.
Yeah.
His uniform was shredded. And, it's I just noticed, too, he had his old uniform here and he had his brown one later on. Interesting.
Yeah. Same with Spidey, right? We did a little costume change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this happened years before the current story. So, yeah, obviously it was after he was part of the Canadian Strike Force because that's what his costume was back then. So,
yellow.
Yeah.
So the chat grade, the 5th grader, dubbed the art of this book a 2.5.
Ooh, serviceable, coming in hot.
Serviceable.
That's the Berlin Wall. Look at that.
Yeah. Quite interesting to hit the story up on this one. David, are you ready for the story? Can you start with the story
I was born ready. This one's fresh in my mind too. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I know.
He's probably got the best of all of us. Probably got the best perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, hit the story, brother.
All right, let's do this thing. The story is. This is a Wolverine story, first and foremost, and that's the best part of this story. And they tacked Spider-Man on there, and there's a bit of crossover toward the mid parts. It supposedly crosses over all the way through, but Spider-Man's just there. His story is a lot worse, and it's weird because at this point, Wolverine was much more of an unknown quantity than Spider-Man. But like the first quarter of this book is explaining Spider-Man, like his power set, what made him a Spider-Man, what gave him powers, who Aunt May is, what he does for a job, what he does in his spare time. It's so strange that they did that because there's nothing on Wolverine here. And I know that helps keep the mysterious thing about him, but very strange, man, the dichotomy of this. But, you know, it is an interweaving story of sorts. You have to suspend some disbelief, but it's a mature story. And for the most part, I kind of dig on it as long as Wolverine's involved. And as everyone knows, I am not a huge Wolverine guy, but this story is really cool in his sections. It only gets bogged down when Spidey comes on. So long story short, I'm not going to try to tell everything. The KGB is involved, and apparently they have thousands of members. In fact, whole entire towns in Germany are nothing but KGB. And there's one rogue KGB agent who seems to have some connection with Wolverine in his past, and we know he's hung out with some shady characters in the past. But Wolverine's intensely loyal, and we see a lot of that in this book, and that's kind of the whole crux of this thing. So we see Wolverine doing Wolverine things. This is back when he was very bloodthirsty, and we see Spider-Man hemming and hawing about being a superhero again. So strange, man. I don't know what they were doing with Spider-Man in this. I don't know if they were trying to make him look weaker to make Logan look stronger or what, but Spider-Man is an established hero at this time. He's an established crime fighter, and they turn him into this blathering baby in this, and I just don't understand it. It's like, yes, he is not an executioner like Wolverine. They're like diametrically opposed if you get down to it, at least at this point in comics. And Spider-Man's acting like he's never fought a criminal before. He's scared of every gun-wielding, gun-toting person in this book. And I know they're trying to make like the operatives, the KGB, like more of a threat than they are. But how threatening are they? Wolverine kills like 100 of them in the first 3 pages of this book. So it's just strange how they handled Spider-Man in this. And I will say this, he only cracked like 2 jokes in this entire book, which is very refreshing for me because that's one of the things I can't stand about it most. It's like, I think that's where the MCU got like their entire like formula for making the movies, you know, with Spider-Man. So he's got a lot of inner dialogue and monologue in this. I guess I can look past that. It's a long book. Doesn't take but about half an hour to read, but still pretty weighty as far as reading goes. And but cool story. I like the story a lot, and it's closed off fairly well. And you actually are invested a little bit in the third character, the mystery character at the end, and you can kind of see where Logan's coming from. And from some sort of extent, you can kind of see where Spidey's coming from, too, because he loses a friend here, or at least a colleague in this, and he misinterprets the situation. And I'll finish off by saying a lot of times the trope of hero versus hero is a misunderstanding. It is used here, but this is a much better way of doing it. Usually they're just dropped into the situation and they start swinging each other for no good reason. And this one, there's like a whole setup page showing why Spider-Man starts fighting Wolverine. When you get to the fight, it's several pages. A lot of these hero versus hero fights are nothing but it's a splash page and maybe 2 panels, and it's done. You know, then they go walk off and they realize the error of their ways. So, yeah, Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief, by the way. David Ricky just asked that in there. So I think it definitely seems like something he would have greenlit. But so that makes sense. It just makes sense why they're fighting. Spider-Man does not hold his own as much as he should in this either. I mean, like he gets hurt a little bit, but once again, they're trying to overpower Wolverine just a bit too much. Like he's not swapping blows with Spider-Man. I'm sorry. Like his brain is still getting jostled around there. His bones might not be breaking, but he gets hurt. And sometimes in these books, he doesn't. Like it's just weird. But anyway, they're throwing down. It's a great fight. Semi-satisfying conclusion, and it ends when it ends on a sensible note. So all that being said, I kind of dug the story except for Spider-Man. So I'm actually going with a 3.5. I want to go higher, but they just got Spider-Man so off in this that it would have been an easy 4, but 3.5, very interesting background story, which brings the whole thing full circle, and the fight makes sense. So 3.5.
Makes sense. All right, 3.5 for the story. How did I feel about the story? Dave, you kind of floated around the issue that I had with this book too, was that the story itself is good, right? Here you have Marvel's 2 big money makers thrown together in a book, but they are so diametrically opposed. You know what I mean? Spider-Man is the epitome of the good, and Wolverine is like a killer assassin guy. Um, Spider-Man's this young kid. Wolverine is, over 100 years old. Spider-Man went to high school. Wolverine went to ninja school, you know what I mean, to be an assassin. And so kind of throwing these guys in, they make the characters do a lot of things that they normally just wouldn't do. You know what I mean? In order to kind of make that story happen where these two guys would be put together in a situation. Now it's kind of cool, like back in this, when this book was going on, there really was a Cold War, and it was in like full swing, right? Like this was prior to the Berlin Wall falling, prior to the Soviet Union falling. Like there was Cold War stuff going on, like in a big way. It was something that like everybody on the news listened to about every day, kind of thing. And kind of put them on that German border, back and forth into a communist country, Cold War stuff, spies. Spider-Man seemed way over his head, which is kind of where they wanted him to be. And Wolverine was in his element, but kind of being dragged out of it by this kid Spider-Man. Right? And there's a lot of incidents in here. Some of the stuff is funny. We've talked again a lot about comic book writers are not comedians. They shouldn't be writing jokes all the time. But actually, a few of the jokes in here I thought landed pretty good. When Spider-Man busts into the restaurant and he's like, do you know all these guys are armed? Yeah. Do you know they're all KGB guys? Yeah. Do you know like we're in danger? Yeah. How bad did I screw up? Real bad. You know what I mean? Like it was this really kind of cool little banter that went on between them. Where Spider-Man kind of went back to his normal self, right? Where he's quippy and jokey, and Wolverine was just kind of his straight man, which he should be. I would have liked to seen a little bit more of that in their dialogue. The characters' dialogue was well written. I didn't find it campy. I didn't find it kind of unbelievable, the things they're saying. I just kind of found a few of the things they were doing kind of unbelievable. The way Spider-Man, didn't freak out about his buddy getting killed. He just was like, yeah, whatever. And like Dave was saying, he's afraid of everybody. And he's like, no. Spider-Man's been fighting guys for a long time. He's got, technically better superpowers than Wolverine. I mean, I guess whichever way you want to go, but yeah, like, but they made him seem like, yeah, like this was his very first day and he was just this little puppy being dragged along by Wolverine sometimes. Seemed a little out of character. He wasn't as jokey as he could have. He seemed a little bit out of character. Wolverine was a little too jokey sometimes. It seemed like out of character. Anyways, I think they did that just to keep a reason for these two characters to be in a book because they are so opposite of characters in these books, right? That kind of got me, but the story itself being placed right into the Cold War, right during the Cold War when this comic was published, the murder stuff. Oh yeah, and the story totally screws up something. I remember reading this and everybody thinking, what? Because of the huge storyline that was going on in Amazing Spider-Man was the Hobgoblin story. Who was the Hobgoblin? And everybody assumed it was Ned Leeds. And when he gets murdered in this book, everybody was like, what? Now, we talked about Jim Shooter being the editor-in-chief, but not really. At this time was right when Jim was leaving, and Marvel decided that it had so many titles on the go that now it was going to have 4 editors, right? So one editor basically approved this story, and another editor who was working with the Spider-Man line didn't know about it. It screwed things up for the whole Amazing Spider-Man Hobgoblin storyline. It really upset readers at the time. I can remember being upset about this. Like, how could they kill him? He's the Hobgoblin, right? And I think they tried to retro some story and then eventually just said, this Spider-Man Wolverine, we're just not going to talk about that anymore, right? I mean, Spider-Man goes back to Amazing Spider-Man, fine and dandy, doesn't even care that he killed somebody, right? And anyways, yeah, I gave the story probably the best mark that I gave any thing here. I actually gave the story a 4. I liked it. I liked it for being a period piece that kind of made sense for the period. And if the characters were doing what they were doing, like supposed to be doing, I would have given it a bit better score. But I really liked their dialogue. I thought he wrote the dialogue really well, and I thought the whole storyline was really good as well. So I gave it a 4. I liked it.
Excellent.
All right. So who's next? Metarog, you up first one?
I could be.
How do you feel about the story, sir?
Well, first of all, let's put this out there. This is a very deep, heavy-duty read. This is not light reading. Okay, this is, I think Genome was talking about it during maybe offline, that this is like a novella length type of story, right? And it is. I mean, it is chock full of internal monologue, narration, first person. I mean, it is. There are words everywhere. I mean, so if you're going to read this, invest some time. This is 64 pages, no ads. So this is heavy duty stuff. That's why Genome was caught flat-footed on this. But yeah, I think that this is a really interesting comic. It's very different from almost any other comic I've read. Genome kind of hinted at this. Usually when, you see the title, Spider-Man versus Wolverine, you think, they're going to go at it, throughout. No, there was just one little fight scene at the end. But I think the title really is more about not their physical confrontation, but really their philosophical differences. And I think that is what the title is really trying to describe to us. Usually when you start a comic like this, they meet, there's a misunderstanding, they fight, and then later on they work together. Here, this is turned on their head. Here, they meet, they work together, and then later they fight. But like Gino says, it makes sense because the fight is based upon a very diametrically opposed a thought process that they have, right? Owsley here, I mean, I think his message is a little bit, really hits you over the head with it. I mean, it's dark, it's dire, it's nihilistic, it's really, has hopelessness throughout. There's a certain, this story, when I read it, I had a certain level of depression about, after I read it, but the fact that he elicited that emotion from me tells me that it was an effective story. And I'll tell you why, because this is a character study. I think Genome was talking, this is really a Wolverine story, but Spider-Man is in there sort of as to have, so you can have the light to his darkness here. So you can see, the two extremes here. You have somebody who is really sees the world as what it is. It's dog eat dog. I'll kill you before you kill me. And Spider-Man has a much more hopeful and bright outlook. Killing is wrong under any circumstances. There's always another option. And there's a scene in the end when he's fighting Wolverine and he has a chance to, well, they really kill, but stop Wolverine. He doesn't, and Wolverine knows that because he knows the type of philosophy that Spider-Man has. And that really carries through the story. Yeah, Genome is right. Spider-Man is way, he's like a milksop here in the beginning of this story. I mean, this man has fought, Sinister Six by himself. He's taken on the Kingpin. He's taken on an innumerable amount of foes, mind-altering foes, the burglar that killed his uncle, all kinds of consternation. I mean, and Owsley is trying to tell me that because those people were killed in that shop, that all of a sudden he's feeling helplessness and useless. I don't buy it, right? I don't buy it. But I think it's a necessary kind of trope to set up the reasons why he feels that he is being useless. I mean, there's lots of little plot holes here, like his spider sense. He could have avoided so much of what's going on with his spider sense. It seems like he's not trusting it, Wolverine says at one point that his claws were given to him during the Weapon X project. Wrong. Those are natural, but the adamantium shielding was given. Ned Leeds here was, why did they put him here? I mean, it could have just been some other reporter. Why kill Ned Leeds? I mean, and then when he's killed, it's sort of like off panel. And then the way Peter Parker reacts, he doesn't even tell anybody. He doesn't even tell, Don't you think if somebody died, you'd be like, yeah, listen, this happened. You know, he waits until way longer, just out of character. None of that matters to me. What matters to me here is that this is a great character study. You see really the depth of who Wolverine is and who Spider-Man mostly is toward the end. The Charlie character is sort of like the catalyst. Again, there's misdirection here. We didn't know she was a female. Doesn't look anything like a female at the beginning, and she looks all hot. And then, you know, there's one scene where at the beginning where the shop owners are there's a little kid running down the street, and you see the lady there, and he sort of like, she could be a landlord or something. I've read enough comic books. When I saw her, I said, that is something important. That lady there, right? And certainly that was Charlie who actually killed those shop owners, and just really all the sleeper agents that she could find somehow found them. Lots of plot holes, lots of characterization, especially for Spider-Man, that doesn't make sense. But let me tell you what, I enjoyed this story to death. It is so different, so deep. It really brought out an emotional response to me. That last part where Spider-Man, I'm going to give away a little spoiler here. Spider-Man kills Charlie by accident. That haunts him, okay? And that you see the same panel over and over and over, that haunting, okay? I know what that is like. I'd never killed a person, but I killed a dog when I was young, when I started driving, and that haunted me for months, okay? So at a much lower level, I know what he's feeling there. So to me, this was a very, very excellent story as far as eliciting the emotions and showing the character study of Wolverine and Spider-Man. I got to give it a 4. I really, it could have been a 5 with a little bit cleaning up a little bit, but because it was that intense to me. But boy, was it dark, and boy, was it troubling to me. 4.
Nice. 4. Good score, Mr. Midrog. I appreciate your insightful comments on this storyline.
Yeah.
Kenneth, you, sir, you're our last panelist up today. How did you feel about the story?
Okay. Well done, Roger. If I could get the screen share, I think that'll help me kind of go through the story a bit here. Sorry, let me get
What up?
there. Okay. Set up, yeah. So, yeah, I was surprised by the tone of the book. Like a lot of Cold War, sleeper cell, espionage, lots of murder, so much murder. It was a more adult themed story than I was expecting. Mostly because Spider-Man was in it. Like I was thinking.
Nope. Mr. Freeze has entered the chat. Hold on. Victor, release your victim. Go. Oh,
I was just going to get a drink because it's so hot in here.
Where's Sunboy when you need him?
Kenny gives it a 3.
even Firestar.
You know, he's watching this right now. It's swearing.
Mm-hmm.
Friggin' stop. Kenny.
Kang the Conqueror is
All right, well,
meddling in the time streams again.
Kenny will have to catch up with us here. Something happened with his stream. He'll refresh, get back in here or whatever. Let's take it over to the chat. We'll get our chat grades in here. If Kenny comes back, we'll listen to what he's got to say while the chat grades come in. So if you guys want to go ahead and drop a grade for the storyline in this in the chat to comments. How did you feel about, Peter Parker in an espionage story, right? Teaming up with the big bad guy Wolverine, just being so different from one another. So yeah, if you can go ahead and give us a grade in the chat, we would appreciate it. Well, we're getting a lot of 3s already.
Yeah. There was one part which I didn't. None of us mentioned, but when he goes to the costume shop,
that was funny. That was actually kind of funny.
That made me laugh when you see the spinner.
Yeah, the spider is good. Yeah.
That was good. That was one little
But-
part of levity in there that I thought was
It fit him perfectly, luckily.
I'm sure, like, when he put that red costume back on, everybody was super happy. I'm sure seeing him in that red costume on this cover was enough to make people happy, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of people that really disliked that black suit.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty good for a storyline, like, for a little bit, but give me the red blue any day, man.
I liked one panel, and none of us talked about it. I really liked is after he discovers the shop owners dead, he's making this part of his moral quandary in this book is he takes pictures of the corpses because he needs the money, and he's like really denigrating himself when he's doing it. And he's like, I pull out my camera. That was a great way to end that scene, and then it transitions to him selling him to Jonah. That was a great little bit right there. I like that a lot.
I remember there's a storyline where when the Beyonder came into Earth and he stole the gold notepad, right? The Beyonder turned the Daily Bugle into gold, which of course can't support the weight of a building, and it all just toppled over, right? But Spider-Man went in there to save people, and he grabbed the gold notepad, a solid gold notepad, and he went for issues feeling guilty about that, right? About taking this thing, let alone like punching a woman in the face to death. And then you go back to Amazing Spider-Man, he never mentions it again. It's not a big deal, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's like, I thought that kind of thing was odd for the storyline, but the whole thing, like I said, being in that Cold War sort of spy era, James Bondy kind of stuff, but with superheroes, I thought was a good idea. I thought it was a cool story.
Yeah, very different. I really did like the intrigue angle in this comic. It does have that kind of Cold War spy novel kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
Again, it's very different type of comic. It's not your usual superhero comic at all.
And I know that seems like that Cold War stuff seems like a long time ago with Russia, that kind of thing. I got to think back to it. You got to think back to it, Roger. Dave,
Sure.
You got to think back to it. You're probably pretty little at that point. Kenny wouldn't have thought about it at all.
No.
Right? He's way too small.
Very.
There's the man. Sorry, I was looking at the camera, not the screen.
Bobby Drake has returned.
So having this story at that time was, I thought was kind of a cool idea too. Kenny, you want to finish what you were saying?
Yeah, I'll do just a brief summary here. I was just gonna say the tone of the book surprised me. It's definitely like adult themed. The Cold War injection in there was pretty heavy. Spider-Man is written as a weenie. Per usual, I'm not the biggest. I think he gets that a lot, but he's just like him giving up on being Spider-Man like so easily. I don't know what his deal with Mary Jane is in this book of like
That was weird too.
We're not. She's not my girlfriend. Or, will she?
I gave her a soul kiss.
Yeah, it was very strange. But I don't know. This is like 1 year after. This is 87, and I know Dark Knight Returns came out 86. So maybe there was like that wave of that more mature themed type of content, and maybe that was kind of the headspace that some of these writers were in. And you're kind of getting a more adult themed book because it was really something. And there's definitely plot holes. Character motivations are a little wonky here and there. So like some of the micro stuff, some of the micro story beats sometimes didn't make sense and were out of character. But the overall arc of what they were doing, I think Roger was right in showing that there's definitely two different schools of thought and approaches to the situation. Because there's a situation. There is someone brutally murdering, sniping, killing people on American soil. They're covert Russian agents. But people don't know that. It just looks like there's a murder spree. So there's some heavy shit going on, and Wolverine is just like, let's just snick them up, man, like without really thinking twice about it. And, Spidey's definitely a lot more conscientious. Until it builds up to their squabble at the end. I thought I didn't even think of it, but that was a good observation by one of you guys of most books start with the confusion in the conflict and then say, oh, no, sorry, that's a misunderstanding. Let's now get on the same page and solve this problem. But this is reversed. Yeah, they start out on the same page, and it ends with a moment of conflict, which I thought was pretty cool. And yeah, Spider-Man kills a lady.
Totally, right?
Yeah, it's like, talk about that tone that I was surprised by. I was like, man, in Wolverine was about to, what's the name of it? Sudokai, or what's they're like gonna do some
Seppuku.
Yeah, like I thought that was rushed. Like it was like, are you sure she wants you to kill her? Like I'm not sure. He was like, yeah, pretty. Look, I know this lady. She definitely wants me to kill her, put out her misery. Like, did she explicitly say that? I think Wolverine might have taken some liberties there. But yeah, anyway, heavy tone, good stuff. I didn't want to go as high as a 4 because I had to ding it for some of those micro beats that I think they got wrong. But I landed on a 3.5. It was really good. I liked it.
Excellent.
Good score. You know, one thing, and not to be sadistic, one of the things I think it messed up on was her face at the end after he hits her. Because Spider-Man's swinging for the fences against Wolverine in this book. Because he even says it on his monologue. He's like, this guy's got adamantium skeleton. I got to hit him as hard as I can, you know? So he just loads off on this girl, and she has like a scratch on her forehead, but it kills her, you know?
Yeah. It should have caved in her whole face.
It should have gave her at least a dent or something. Yeah. Bloody nose.
Well, that probably would have decapitated her.
Yeah.
You know, they couldn't show that, obviously.
No.
After Ned's, like shaving cut, you should have.
Yeah. Sure. She had a Titanic moment there. She's nice and serene. So this was good, yeah. Good little throwdown, though. It wasn't a bad fight.
No. So what was the chat grade, brother?
It came out to be a 3.5.
Nice. So we're all seeming to be on the same page here.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's move along to the concept of this book. And I'll start with the concept this time. So I've kind of touched on it a little bit when I was talking about the story already. Sticking Spider-Man into this spy thriller where he's obviously, way in over his head. It's one of those I think was a really great idea. Teaming him up with somebody so different. Even though they have the same goals in mind, they have different means to achieve that goal, and very different philosophies to achieve that goal. So I like the story. I like the concept of this book. Let's put our two biggest guys, have some sort of real reason for them to be there and, team up. And I like not just like throwing into a team up issue like Marvel Team Up, but actually like, here's a storyline. Like these guys, I know they're kind of doing some weird stuff, but they could actually team up and be in this spy thriller. And so I like the concept of this book. I thought it's probably long overdue for putting your two big guys into a thing all the way to 1987. So concept of this book got a 4 for me. I liked it. And how do I get it out of everybody? There you are.
Oh, you're a pro at this now.
Getting there. We're gonna rotate Kenny before you shut her out again on us. How did you feel about the concept of this book, my friend?
Concept, one shot character team ups. I get it. I feel like that's a classic move to pull in comics when you want to do something a little outside of the box and sell some issues. Do a one shot and put two big characters together, cross them over, pull their fans into each other. As far as that part of the concept goes, that's great. It's funny because Spider-Man is usually the guy that, for a while, he was Mr. Cameo, right? Spider-Man was Mr. Cameo if a book was struggling. And for a while, I feel like Wolverine was also that guy. Later, he would become that guy. So, but by 87, I don't think he was quite in that role yet. So that's kind of funny. The two booster characters, together in a story, and then concept-wise, on the decision to make the story's tone what they did, I thought was a good idea. So overall, I feel like they really nailed it. I got to give a 4 on the concept. Well done. Good character team up.
Yeah, see, that's correct. You got one.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
All right, so let's rotate around. David, concept of this book. I know you're a hater, so see how you feel about it.
Kenny, what was your grade again? I'm sorry.
A 4.
4. Okay. Yeah, just because I hate the characters, though, doesn't mean I won't give them a fair shake. And from a conceptual standpoint, this book fires on all cylinders. You take in 2 of your heavy hitters and throw them together in the same book, makes complete sense. Wolverine was definitely on the upswing at this point, getting more and more popular by the day. So, and of course, Spider-Man's always an established property. So what better way to sell a very expensive book than putting them both together? Kind of a novel idea, right? Or at least a good one. And doing so, you do it in a more adult themed, serious story. You know, there's a lot of murder and mayhem and intrigue in this. And as Mr. Miracle was saying, you know, all done with the backdrop of the Cold War, which was still kind of raging at the time. You know, the Soviet Union had not yet fallen. And you know, that was everyone's boogeyman at the time. So you're bringing them out to play. And then you're over in East Berlin still, when the wall was still up and all. So lots of like current day events were actually woven into this too. And it was nice to see a story that they decided to take out of New York City, for goodness sake. It's so nice. So it's a great concept. You take 2 characters that are, like I said, diametrically opposed. You throw them in the same book and you make them cross paths in a way that makes some pseudo sense. Good idea. Other than their mishandling of Spider-Man, I think it was an almost perfect concept, really. I actually gave this one a 4 as well. I would give it a 4.5 if they handled Spider-Man a little bit better. It was maybe a little bit too wordy. That was maybe it. I don't know. This is almost like the graphic novel approach without the graphic novel treatment, you know? Maybe this is their precursor. I don't know. But yeah, it's a great one. And I don't know. Nikolai Volkov. We're talking about Croatian guys playing Russians, right? But yeah, I think it's a great concept. I give it a 4, and this is what you want to see. At least, even if I didn't like how they treated Spider-Man, at least they gave him pretty equal billing on the story, if not more than equal billing than Wolverine in this. So yeah, 4, good concept.
Nice. Yeah, we're all sort of like the concept of the idea of the book, but yeah, it's a little weird executions.
Yeah.
Do we hit everybody except for the chat?
Roger. Poor Roger. Just being left on the outskirts.
I'll get you a checklist.
I know. I'm doing it on purpose now, just to bug him. Roger, please tell us how you felt about the concept of this book.
I get the feeling I'm not wanted here, but anyway, I feel like Spider-Man in this comic here, useless. Anyway, yeah, you know, on the surface, this seems like a cash grab, right? You take your 2 most popular characters, or Wolverine was getting up there, and you stick them in a comic. You $2.50 when comics were about 75 cents at this point. You know, you put some, you know, list team on the art and the story, and you know, take home your profit. But you have to, again, you can't judge a book by its cover or a concept by the outwardly looking cash grab parts. You're getting 64 pages of story, so essentially you're getting the equivalent of 3 comic books here. And you're getting, I think this is Mando or Backstow paper. I forgot. I haven't seen it in a while. It's somewhere in my room, but so you're getting a good quality paper, no ads, and yeah, you're getting 1 cover. So they're saving on having 3 comics with the cover, but you're getting, you know, what is really a surprisingly in-depth, mature, dark, maybe, and a little bit cynical, but a very involved story. And like Gino says, it makes quasi sense here. I mean, you know, Spider-Man is sort of running away because of that really weird part with Mary Jane, but at least it's some kind of rationale for him to want to get away. And then Wolverine has a very good rationale for wanting to stop this. And their philosophies here are really stark. And the differences are very stark. And Mr. Owsley, I think, does a heck of a job really espousing their philosophies and showing it. Maybe he was a little heavy-handed with it because of what he did to Spider-Man. Just made him a little bit too wishy-washy. I mean, it would have been better if if he would have somehow just not been able to save that couple, just barely got there in time, but he didn't really witness it. And, that kind of angst that he had about, capitalizing on people's deaths. Yeah, I get it, but I think it's too stark of a difference there. But the Cold War angle, the fact that Wolverine is just, a product of what society has made of him. He's a killer, and he makes no apologies for it. And Spider-Man, he almost leaves, but because of what that infused moral that his Uncle Ben gave him, that with great power comes great responsibility, he says, no, I gotta stick it in here. I gotta stay, and I gotta be responsible. I like it. I mean, I like the concept here. It just to me, it's very different. It's very trailblazing. It's very surprising. It's very jarring at the same time. But I think that means to me that it's an effective concept. And it was pretty well executed. It had a lot of hiccups. Like I can see why you guys would give it a 3.5 on the writing, right? Because there was a lot of it, which in my, nitpicky mind says I have a problem with it. But boy, I was so invested in how different these two characters were. And like you said, they had the same objective, but totally different methods and totally different ways of getting to that objective. Just very deep kind of concept here. So yeah, I agree with all of you. 4.
Nice. I think we all hit it around that 4.
What's funny is they actually even use that line in the book too. With the great power comes great responsibility. They flash back so much on him. I don't understand that.
Maybe they were hoping they could convert all the Spider-Man fans to Wolverine fans, all the Wolverine fans and the Spider-Man fans. They went over everything again, or maybe he was just like, man, I got 62 pages to fill. I better fill it with something.
That's quite possible.
That brings us to our 5th grader, the chat. How did you guys feel about the concept of this book? Is it why did they bother, or is it why did they take so long for this to come out? Right? How did you feel? Give us a score between 1 to 5, half points only, and we'll go from there.
Oh, you got close to your mic there. It's sounding really good.
Should I bring this mic closer? Can you hear me?
No, because that one can hear you better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys got to tell me. I told you it's a brand new mic. I haven't even tried it out. I don't even know if I should have it closer, if I should have it farther. I don't want.
I keep my mic about
feedback.
6 inches from
Put
right
it
up
back a couple feet so we can't hear you, and you're perfect.
Yeah, thanks. Guys.
I need to get a fancy mic one of these days. I just talk at my computer.
Yeah, me too.
There's a mic in there somewhere. I'm just talking.
These guys are another level,
Well, I was doing that too for a long time, but people kept complaining, we can't hear you, and they were right. Like sometimes the volume on my videos was really, really low, so I got a mic. See if it'll help.
Jackson Roy Kirk, 2.5 cash grab.
2.5
There
cash
my
grab.
credibility.
Hey, I'm not saying that like there isn't a little cash grabbedness to this book. Like obviously you're putting your big money characters, stacking them up together. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure that was his pitch. Hey, I'm going to take your 2 biggest money makers and put them in one book. Oh, that sounds good. What's your story? Right?
I mean, I guess you can say, why didn't they just put this in the regular Spider-Man comics and make it a story arc, maybe, but that way perhaps you can justify it. But really, considering what you're paying for this comic and what you would pay for those, there's not much difference, except that this is more spotlighted because it's the title and so forth. But
I suppose. What were comics selling for at this time? 60 cents? 75?
75, I think in 86, 87. I think in 85 they went to 65. 70. I think 75. Yeah, 75.
Yeah. So I mean, it was still like, but I mean, there's no ads, so you're paying for that, right?
Yeah.
If they're not making money off advertising, they got to make their percentage somehow. Right?
Yeah. I remember it was tough to lay down $250 for this. I do remember that. It was tough. but
Yeah,
you had to have it. Come on.
I bought it. I bought it off the rack. I remember, you know, my paper route money or whatever I was spending
Yeah.
on.
I had a job, but still, you know, I'm a cheapskate, man. So I mean, for me to dish out $250 was, I had to think of it several times. It's $2 because I got a discount at the shop, but
High roll was like, you get discounts? Uh-huh.
well, back then you did. I don't know if you still do.
You used to laugh at us when you walk in. It's like, suckers, just go and lay your money on the counter, man. You don't bargain in here, or I'll break out the freaking Wizard magazine, and then you're really going to take it.
So that everybody in for our chat? We only get the one? We got a few. Sorry.
Yeah, we got a few. I can add them real quick.
I like Ken Burns' comment down there. Ned done dirty. That's right. That's right. They messed it up big time here. Yeah.
I think Dave mentioned it too. It's like they could have made it anybody, just some random investigative reporter. Why do you have to?
I'm sure. Like they spent like probably a year and a half worth of Amazing Spider-Man issues setting up the Hobgoblin story, and then when they killed Ned Leeds in 2 panels in such a undramatic way, it was just like, what?
Yeah.
Everybody was like, what? I think for the most part, they brought Ned back and they made something going on where he was brainwashed into being it, so that it wasn't really him. And
it was a mess. It was a mess.
It was a mess.
Yeah,
it was a big mess a lot because of this issue.
Yeah, it was a mess.
This was Marvel going in way too many directions at once.
Yeah. Yeah. And who was it that was writing Spider-Man at this time? Was it Peter David or Falco? I don't remember now. I don't remember who's that. But it messed it up because everybody was working up to that. Everybody knew it. It just blew up on their face.
Yeah. And even when, like, you gotta remember too, like when Ned's killed here in this book and like Spider-Man doesn't tell anybody, that's Betty Brant's husband, right?
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
Right? Like she's known Betty since Spider-Man issue 1.
He's known Ned Leeds all his life. I mean,
in the movies, Ned's the little Asian kid, right?
Yeah.
Ned.
They changed it. Yeah, they changed it.
3.5 says the chat.
3.5. Okay. Roger Stern. It was Roger Stern. Oh boy. Oh well, he's got question mark. Yeah. Yeah. But it messed up that storyline. That's all I know. It really messed it up. That Spider-Man in the 280s and the 290s were.
Once I was reading this issue, I could specifically remember reading this issue when I was younger, and being really pissed off about that Ned had his throat cut, being like, "What? How can that be?"
Such a throwaway scene. You know, it would be different if he was like, you know, in there and he found out something,
or like just.
It was just off.
I like how
little razor cut. That was it.
I like how the authorities just let Peter Parker leave the country too, and there's a dead body in his freaking hotel room.
Yeah. Peter Simmons.
Bodies all over the place.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. We'll move on to our final grade, which is the overall. We'll just go around, and I'll start with Kenny. Kenny, sir, we'll start with you again, and we start with you last round. But how did you feel overall about this book?
Overall, the cover art, I gave it 2.5. I did think it was pretty serviceable. I thought they could have kind of a flat angle. I think they could have did something more interesting there. Weird texture on the gravestones threw me off, but overall, pretty cool. Gave you what you needed. A cool action shot. I like the color palette on there. The art inside, I thought was above average. Interesting color choices. Overall, I thought it was pretty solid. Inconsistent faces for sure was a theme. A lot of recurring cliches. But a 3. In between the writing and the concept, those were also above average. So it's definitely an above average book. How above average is it? Is the question.
Are you asking us or are you telling us?
Clearly, let's see. So I'm gonna fall on a 3 on my overall final grade. Gonna give it a 3.
That's 3.
Yeah.
Let's go up to David. David, how did you feel about the overall?
Well, for the cover, I gave it 3.5. I think I actually gave it the highest score of all of us. No, I equaled you, Dave. It's just a good action cover. There's a few problems with it, but overall, it's a heck of a lot worse. And I do like the poses of both Spider-Man and Wolverine, and it gets your juices, pumping here. You want to see these guys fight, and it's not even a gotcha cover. It actually happens inside. So really cool stuff there. Give it 3.5, better than average for sure. For interior art, also gave it 3.5. A lot of good stylistic choices, a lot of poor rendering, a lot of inconsistencies. You had Carl Potts in your stable at the time. And Mike Zeck, I'm not sure if he was working on anything permanent at this point, or whatever. It's like maybe you could throw him in there, but still, I wasn't totally upset, with the artist's layouts and all that. It's just that, I don't know. Spider-Man was off to me a little bit. But good action scenes, a good variety of different stuff going on there. So I gave 3.5.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Keep going.
But for story, also gave that 3.5. I would have gone up to a 4 because it's got a really cool political kind of intrigue and thriller thing. You get to see the loyalty of Logan. He even leaves the X-Men behind. He's like, all right, these are my new friends, but I have older friends, and they come first. So he leaves them in some time of crisis or whatever, just to go help out this Charlie person who you find out is Charlene or whatever later on. But
Charlemagne.
Yeah, Charlemagne. That's right. The Frank. That's kind of strange. But anyway, cool story. But Spider-Man was woefully mishandled in this, and he was mopey and out of character and acting like a real greenhorn. And he's not some jabroni freaking coming off. He's not some jobber that's coming in there. This guy's an experienced crime fighter, and they made him, like Roger said, a freaking milksop. So I know he was not decided in his mind or whatever if he wanted to keep doing the superhero thing, and he thought he was going to hang up the web shooters, but we know that's not going to happen. So that was mishandled, but it was a cool story. 3.5, better than average. And my favorite thing in this was the concept, and I gave it a 4 because it's just solid. You take 2 A+ characters that are in your stable, you throw them together in an actual interesting storyline, and you put them in a fight scenario that makes sense why it came to be. It's not like they were mad at each other for anything. It's just Spider-Man trying to be Spider-Man here, and Wolverine, and not understanding the situation. Good stuff, and the fight was actually pretty good, so gave that a 4. My overall grade came out to a 3.5, and I kind of agree with that. It's much better than average book. Nothing mind-blowing here, but the story was something. This is a story you'll remember. This is not a lot of one-shots, you tend to forget them unless something stupendous happens. And this is a story you probably remember after reading it for quite a while. So 3.5, good, solid book, and I'm glad I read it.
Nice. Okay. Roger, your overall opinion, sir?
Oh, thank you for remembering me.
It's only funny twice.
Cover, cover gets the job done. I like the color scheme. I wish the figures were a little bigger, maybe the trade dress a little smaller. But hey, it's Spider-Man versus Wolverine. As long as you put them both on there and they're having some kind of action, it's going to sell, So it gets the job done. It's a little better than serviceable, I would say. I do like the color scheme really stands out to me, so that kind of bumped it up a little bit, so I give it a 3. Art, it has good aspects, it has not so good aspects. I think the panel layouts were pretty well done. I think some of the action was pretty well done. The inking was hit or miss, kind of underwhelming, really. The faces, sometimes they were just not aged well. There's one where Jay Jonathan looks more like Tony Stark, and then Ned Leeds looks like, like Odin, just there's like issues there with the aging of the faces, and some of the actual cranial structures, they alternate from one to the other. Not super distracting, so I don't really give it a lot off of that. So I give it a 3. It's definitely better than average. The story, this is where we start getting into the higher echelon of this book. Man, I was really surprised because I figured this was, just throw whatever out there. Spider-Man, Wolverine, you're going to buy it, and then you're going to complain about it, and, you're still going to have it, But no, it was surprisingly deep, dark, disturbing, nihilistic, cynical, on and on and on and on. but effective as heck, really. And it really affected me, I mean, at a level I was surprised that it affected me, considering that these are two diametrically opposed philosophies that really, it makes you think about what yours is, right? And what will you do in the situation? Like the situation where, he could have killed Wolverine, but it's like, well, if I kill him, then I'm proving to him that what he's doing is right, because that's going to lead to more death, right? It has so many different nuances here that I gave it a much higher grade just because it had all those different really surprising elements, even though it had a lot of problems, plot holes and inconsistencies galore. But this is one of those that overcame that to me, because just the actual concept of the story was so well done. And that leads me to the concept again. 4 looked like a cash grab, smelled like a cash grab, but really it was really a much higher level production. Really much more thought went into it, even if it was a problematic, continuity wise. Certainly it was an effective way of bringing this story forth in a very special one shot that maybe a lot of people maybe would sort of not pick up Spider-Man just because they're not Spider-Man fans. But if you see a one shot and you're like, hey, I'll give it a shot, because it's one story, it's all in one comic, and let me tell you, it was really well done. Heavy read for sure, but man, really well done. So if I shake it all out, it comes out to a 3.5, but I'm gonna bump it up to a 4, just because to me the story and the concept are much more important to me than the cover, for example. And so I just think that if you're out there and you want to read something that's very different, it's not a superhero story. It's more of a philosophical study I'm not going to get into what the philosophies are, but it's a philosophical study, and it's really a bit of intrigue, Cold War, all the stuff that you read about in those spy novels, but in a much more condensed, even as heavy as it is, condensed version. So I give it a 4.
Nice. Yeah, 4. Interesting overall. All right, so I guess I'm the last for the overalls. I liked it. 3. No, I did like it. Like I always said at the end of my thing, I kind of take a look when I hit the overall. Would I recommend this to somebody to read? Yeah, I would. Would I recommend that somebody go online and pay, $15 for this? Definitely no. It's not worth that, right? It's a cool one shot. It's a nice piece of Copper Age history. Everybody that was that sort of age when this thing came out on the spinner rack definitely bought it. And yeah, I like the concept of this book. I like the story. I really thought the character dialogue was good for what they were doing. It just a little bit off from the characters that there would be. But other than that, I think it was really enjoyable reading. Took me more than one sitting. It is like a big thing. I didn't realize it was no ads and all that stuff. I had forgotten all that. So I was like, my eyes were crossing a little bit when I got about halfway through, and I put her aside and finished her the next day. And yeah, but overall, gave this guy let me take a look. Yeah, I gave it a 3. Wasn't the best art, but it was definitely well worth reading. Anyway, 3. Well, that brings us to our conclusion tonight. So overall, I think most of us like this one, right? I guess, right, guys?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. I'm sorry it was such a big read. I've forgotten that it was like this big, thick, no advertisement double issue thing. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty good pick. Like I said, it's kind of that little piece of Copper Age history from Marvel. Let's go around again. Starting out let's go with you, David. We haven't started with you very often tonight. What do you got coming up in your channel, my friend?
Almost nothing. Oh yeah, we got to pick the next book too.
Yeah, we'll pick the next book when we get to you, Kenny.
Okay. Yeah, not much new coming on the channel. I may shoot a few things, but it's nothing concrete. I've really set back. I'm just editing. I'm editing like a machine for a guy on the gaming channel right now. So there's not a lot of time between work and house projects and all that. So honestly, I don't know if I have anything too current coming up anytime soon. So,
oh well, when you do, we'll be watching, brother. You know,
awesome. Thank you.
Medrog, I know you dropped the countdown today, or the roundup today. Sorry. What else you got coming up, my friend?
Well, I got tagged by a certain gentleman over there in Massachusetts for top 50, but the problem is this, right? That I already did it a few years ago, and then I did another one just on variants. So I'm going to do it a little differently than you, Mr. Miracle.
Okay.
It's not going to be a top 50 per se favorite. It's going to be a certain top 50. So that will be hitting hopefully Thursday if all goes right.
Nice. And moving over to Kenny. Kenny, you first of all, it's your pick for the next book. Are you gonna drop a pick? Are you gonna drop the hammer? Say this is what we're doing. Are we gonna go to the vote? Are we gonna go to the chat for this one?
The days of democracy are over, brother. I'm dropping a hammer.
Cream will rise to the top.
Yeah, we're gonna do this one. Let's do this one. Let's do Marvel versus DC.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Marvel
Such a good pick.
DC #1. It's got Dan Jurgens in here. I think Peter David writes. Rubenstein. So talk about concept. This will be a fun concept.
Yeah, man, that's gonna be a fun book in general and all areas, I think. Yeah.
So
great pick, Kenny.
It's been ages since I read it too. So
cool. I've never read it.
I couldn't believe that. Genome and Miracle both said they never read it.
Never read it.
I couldn't read this thing fast enough as a kid. Like Marvel versus DC, what?
I had to fight off people to get my copy.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe that's why. Maybe it never came to my little town.
So dust off your copies, folks. And so that'll be that. And
what do you got coming up on your channel? Share with that.
On my channel, I'm not sure. The only thing in my future is my pillow. It's bedtime. I'm gonna definitely check out Miracles. Thank you for responding to that tag. I want to see the top 50 for Miracle and what Roger's cooking up. So that'll be fun. And yeah, man, stay tuned for the impromptu 84 video.
All right, you're always dropping stuff, and I like that. Like your Batman poll that you've been having on your channel has been really cool. I've been voting.
Oh yeah, that's I might make a video once that comes to its conclusion, and maybe kind of discuss that whole poll. And some votes I was surprised by, some I expected. I was thinking of doing a stream and just kind of discuss that whole thing.
That's not a bad plan.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. I voted on each one. That was cool.
Nice.
Yeah, me too. That was definitely I like that. So for me personally, let's start. Okay, here's today's drawing. This is what I got done in the time period for today.
Oh, nice.
Dang.
Nice. That's definitely not Comics Code approved. Too much blood.
No.
Wow. They get better and better, man.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm pretty practiced at drawing Wolverine and Spider-Man. I didn't have time to do both.
I know needs to do more Spider-Man anyway. So
yeah. So what else do I got? I just dropped my top 50 or my favorite 50. I wouldn't call them like top video. Like they're definitely not my most expensive comics, but they're the ones that I like happen to be my favorites today. Like I was saying in the video, you ask me tomorrow, I might pick a different 50 entirely. But I got that, and of course, there'll be another 5 undervalued comic books tomorrow, right? Every second Friday, I'm dropping those, so we'll have another one of those up right away. And you never know, I slide into channels once in a while, do little things here and there, drop a surprise top 50 video once in a while. And this is all, thanks to Kenny tagging us in this one. So, I mean, a lot of content creators have been doing those top 50s. I really liked Unruly Simians too. That guy has a lot of 9.8 comics and some really nice
Oh
ones
my gosh.
too, man. He is a slab collector, that guy, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, I gotta put like
He had
Yeah,
7
maybe-
9.8s of a recent one I saw. I can't remember what it was. It was like a newer Spider-Man or something variant, I think.
oh yeah, with the special cover that everybody
Spoiler:
Yeah.
no slabs in my top 50. 0 slabs.
I had one. I had a slab. It was a
You had
PGX slab.
one, the PGX one, yeah.
Yeah, but I bought that for cheap, man. And yeah, so you never know what's going to happen on Miracles Channel. Anyways, I really appreciate everybody that's hung out in our chat all this time. I know we were a little late tonight. We still took up almost full 2 hours. Everybody on this panel, you guys did a fantastic job. Really appreciate all the effort you guys put into it. Well, at least Kenny and Roger. Appreciate the effort you put into tonight's show. Other than that, yeah, we're going to end right here. Again, thanks for watching. And just a reminder, Wednesdays are new comic book day, but every day is old comic book day. So this has been Mr. Miracle Comics. My name is Dave. We'll see you next video. Oh, they always make you